April 30th, 1945. The most feared man on earth. Now, a prisoner under the ground. Above him, Berlin burns. Soviet tanks roar closer. Bombs shake the walls of his bunker. No armies left to save him. No loyal friends standing by his side. Only fear. Only betrayal. Only death. Adolf Hitler, the man who once promised a 1,000-year empire, is down to his final 24 hours. Today, let's walk into that dark, crumbling bunker and see the real end of Adolf Hitler. Chapter 1. Berlin is burning. By late April, Berlin wasn't a city anymore. It was a graveyard. Everywhere you looked, broken buildings, fires, smoke choking the sky. Day and night, Allied bombers pounded the city, and now the Soviet army was right at the doorstep. Millions of soldiers, tanks, artillery, ready to crush what was left. Ordinary Germans hid in cellars, praying just to survive another night. But deep under the Chancellery Gardens, Adolf Hitler was hiding too, in a bunker buried 7 meters underground, a bunker he thought would save him. But even steel and concrete couldn't protect him from what was coming next. Chapter 2. Inside the bunker. Cold, dark, hopeless. Let me take you inside that bunker. It wasn't a palace, it wasn't even comfortable. It felt more like a cold, dark prison. The walls were made of thick concrete, but even that couldn't stop the dampness. The air smelled like wet stone and burnt metal. There were no windows, no sunlight. The air was thick and heavy. Breathing inside felt like trying to breathe underwater. The only sound you could hear was the endless hum of the ventilation fans buzzing day and night, drilling into your head. After a while, it made people feel dizzy, even sick. The bunker itself was small and cramped. Hitler had just a few tiny rooms to himself. One little bedroom, one small office for meetings, and a bathroom he shared with Eva Braun, the woman who stayed close to him till the end. The hallways twisted around like a maze. Soldiers, secretaries, and generals filled the narrow spaces, moving quietly, barely speaking. There was no laughter anymore, no smiling, just a heavy, uncomfortable silence. Everyone inside knew the truth. This was the end, and honestly, nobody would choose to live in a place like this, not if they had any other choice. It was cold. It was lonely. It was a tomb waiting to be close. Chapter 3. Hitler, sick, broken, and lost. Now, imagine seeing Hitler in those final days. He wasn't the shouting, powerful dictator you see in old videos. He was an old, broken man. His hands shook all the time, especially his left hand. He walked hunched over, dragging his feet. His face was pale like paper, his body thin and weak. Doctors gave him injections every day, glucose, vitamins, but nothing helped. He was sick, not just in his body, but in his mind. He still sat at his desk, moving armies across maps, giving orders to divisions that didn't even exist anymore. Deep down, he knew it was over, but he refused to admit it, even to himself. Chapter 4. Betrayal and Despair. And as Hitler sat underground, the final betrayal began. First came Hermann Göring. Now, Göring wasn't just any Nazi leader. He was Hitler's second in command, the man Hitler had once trusted more than anyone else. But when Göring saw Berlin falling, he panicked. He sent a telegram asking if he could take over Germany. You know, just in case. Hitler couldn't rule anymore. When Hitler read that message, he exploded. He called Göring a traitor, stripped him of all his power, ordered him arrested. He even wanted him dead. But it didn't stop there. Then came Heinrich Himmler, the cold-hearted boss of the SS, the man who had built the Nazi terror machine. Turns out, while Hitler was hiding, Himmler was secretly trying to negotiate peace with the Allies. He wanted to save his own life, even if it meant stabbing Hitler in the back. When Hitler found out, he lost what little control he had left. He shouted, he cursed, he called Himmler the biggest traitor of all. Imagine that, the men who had built the Third Reich with him, now trying to run away, while he sat there, trapped and alone. Hitler realized the awful truth. There was nobody left. No army, no loyal generals, no hope, just the cold concrete walls and the ticking clock. In all this darkness, one person stayed by Hitler's side. Eva Braun. She could have left. She could have saved herself, but she chose to stay. In the early hours of April 29th, inside that dark bunker, Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun finally got married. No music, no flowers, no family. Just a few close followers, Joseph Goebbels and Martin Bormann, standing in silence. Eva signed her name proudly, Eva Hitler. It was the only thing she ever wanted, to die as his wife. After a small glass of champagne, the mood turned heavy again. Outside, Soviet artillery shook the ground. Everyone knew the end was only hours away. Chapter 6. The Final Goodbye. April 30th, 1945. In the early afternoon, Hitler called his staff into a room one last time. He shook their hands, one by one. Some said he seemed strangely calm, like a man who had finally made peace with life. Then, he and Eva disappeared into his private room. A few minutes later, a loud bang. The people outside froze. When they opened the door, they found the bodies. Hitler sat slumped on the sofa, a pistol in his hand. Eva lay beside him, a cyanide capsule between her teeth. They were gone. Following Hitler's orders, the guards carried their bodies up the narrow staircase, out into the ruined Chancellery garden. They poured gasoline over the corpses. They set them on fire, while the Soviets closed in. Hitler had made sure there would be no grave, no shrine, no body for his enemies to parade. Only ashes, blown away by the wind. Chapter 7. Final words. And just like that, the nightmare that had terrified the world for over a decade ended not with a final battle, but with a gunshot in a dark bunker. Adolf Hitler, the dictator, the destroyer, died alone, betrayed, broken, afraid. No last stand, no brave speech, just fear and fire. When the news of Hitler's death finally spread, the world reacted in different ways. In Germany, some people cried, not because they loved him, but because they knew their world, everything they believed in, had completely fallen apart. In London, Paris, New York, people cheered. Crowds filled the streets, waving flags, celebrating the fall of the man who had brought so much pain. For millions who had suffered, it felt like a curse had finally been lifted. But even in victory, the happiness was not pure. The world was still broken. Cities lay in ruins. Families were torn apart forever. The monster was gone, but the scars he left behind would take generations to heal. And so, the world, wounded, exhausted, but still standing, took a deep breath and slowly, painfully, began to move forward.